Today, grabbing a bite outside is almost second nature. Going to a restaurant, whether that be a Michelin-starred restaurant in Paris, maybe a street vendor in Bangkok, even Olive Garden and McDonald's, which by the way did have the best nuggets when I was in college, is considered natural and something that everybody does at some point in their life. But just 2 centuries ago, eating in public, even sitting at a table with strangers, was almost unthinkable. How did we get here? How did restaurants change from rare occurrences to everyday cornerstones of modern life? This is the rise of the restaurant. Restaurants actually started off as hospitality services for travelers. We have to go all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia to analyze how they actually started. Archaeological records from the city of Ur show that taverns existed where travelers and locals could buy beer and bread. These establishments also served as informal meeting places, but were not focused on varied food menus or public dining experiences. If we go forward a little to ancient Greece and Rome, we can see that in Athens, thermopolia or hot food shops were common. These were small storefronts selling ready-to-eat meals, typically to the poor who lacked private kitchens. In Rome in particular, thermopolia were extremely widespread. Over 150 thermopolia have been uncovered in Pompeii alone. These places offered stews, bread, and wine, but customers typically stood or took the food elsewhere. Dining in was extremely rare. Medieval Europe also had inns, taverns, and alehouses, serving simple fare like stews, bread, and cheese, primarily for travelers and merchants. Meals were often communal, with guests eating together at long tables, regardless of social standing. There were no menus, limited choice, because food was prepared in bulk, based on what was available. In all of these cases, the primary purpose was lodging, drinking, or basic sustenance during travel. They were not centered around choice, private service, or leisurely dining for local populations. The birth of the modern restaurant, according to a lot of historians, can be tracked to Paris in the late 18th century, particularly in the 1760s and 1770s. The term restaurant first referred to broths and soups considered medicinal, intended to restore health. In 1765, a Parisian named Mathurin Rosé de Chantoiseau is often credited with opening the first establishment offering a variety of restaurants or restorative soups to paying customers at private tables. Although some sources dispute whether Rosé's establishment qualifies as a true restaurant, he set the key template: individual seating, menu choices, and personal service. One of the other things he introduced was flexible operating hours. Unlike set meal times at inns, you could get food at any time at his restaurant. This trend was noticed by other people as well, and by 1789, just before the French Revolution, Paris already had 100 restaurants. And the French Revolution massively accelerated the rise of restaurants. With the collapse of the aristocracy, thousands of private chefs, butlers, and kitchen staff found themselves unemployed. These skilled culinary workers flooded the public market, opening restaurants to serve the rising middle class and newly powerful political elites. They brought high cuisine, elaborate dishes, complex sauces, refined techniques to the broader public. Dining out became more of a status symbol, where people could politically engage and socially participate, specifically with the new urban classes. By 1804, there were over 500 restaurants in Paris, a 5-fold increase in just 15 years. And by 1814, during the fall of Napoleon, the number had doubled again to over 1,000. And restaurants were so popular because they completely changed social dynamics. They initiated a shift from private to public dining. Previously, social dining was a private, invitation-only affair in someone's home. Now, strangers could dine side by side. A restaurant was a place where anyone who could pay could theoretically enjoy the same menu, a radical break from the rigid social hierarchies of earlier eras. By the 19th century, people knew what was happening in Paris, and the restaurant concept spread rapidly across Europe into North America, driven by urbanization, industrialization, and the rising middle class. London was one of the first cities to adopt restaurant-style dining. Its first notable French-style restaurant was the Regent's Quadrant, opened in 1820. By 1840, upscale dining venues such as Simpson's in the Strand had made restaurant-going a mark of social status for the English upper middle class. It had traditional English dining customs, heavy roasts and puddings mixed with French influences like service à la Russe. In America, one of the first real restaurants opened in New York City, Delmonico's, which opened in 1827. Unlike taverns and boarding houses, Delmonico's offered private tables, printed menus, and extensive wine lists. By the 1860s, Delmonico's had become synonymous with luxury, offering dishes like lobster Newburgh and baked Alaska. The growth in New York was also explosive. In 1830, there were fewer than 20 dedicated restaurants in Manhattan. By 1855, the number had grown to over 400. and by 1900, New York had over 1,000 restaurants, ranging from oyster cellars to fine French establishments. While this was all happening, Paris still continued to be the standard. It had thousands of restaurants catering to every economic class. Dining out was increasingly associated not just with necessity, but pleasure, convenience, and also, more importantly, social visibility. All of this was centered around the middle class. Real wages rose about 50% between 1800 and 1850 in Britain. Skilled workers got more purchasing power for leisurely activities, which included dining. In the US, middle-class household income rose steadily after the Civil War in 1865, fueling a consumer economy centered on goods and services like restaurants. Perhaps the most underrated factor in the explosion of restaurants is the role of railroads. The 19th century was the age of the railroad, and railroads transformed not just transportation but also eating habits. In the United States, about 9,000 miles of track were laid in 1850 and over 190,000 by 1900. Similarly, in Britain, 98 miles of track in 1830 and over 6,600 miles by 1850. Travelers required convenient food options during long journeys. Hotels sprang up near major train stations, with restaurants attached to serve both tourists and businessmen. The train itself also became sort of a restaurant, with the first dining car being introduced in 1859 by the Pullman Company in the United States. By the 1880s, Pullman dining cars were offering multi-course meals, fine china, and linen service while the train was actually moving. The menu items included steak, oysters, roast duck, and souffles, dishes associated with top restaurants. They represented luxury and modernity, promoting train travel itself as a prestigious experience. Once you actually got off the train, you could go to a hotel restaurant as well, with hotels like the Waldorf Astoria in New York featuring opulent restaurants that rival the finest dining establishments. By the late 19th and 20th centuries, dining out had evolved beyond basic nourishment. It became sort of a public performance, a way for rich people to project wealth, taste, sophistication, and I'm doing air quotes right now, and social class. Before we dig deeper into why rich people love restaurants so much, do not forget to smash the like button and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We explore a new food concept on this channel every single week and find out how it links to culture, society, and business. Food is essential for us, and it's important that we understand it better. Fine dining restaurants were often lavish spaces adorned with crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, silver service, and live orchestras. These establishments now offered multi-course meals that could last hours, a luxury only the affluent could afford. Menus at prestigious restaurants in cities like Paris, London, and New York often included exotic imported ingredients such as truffles, caviar, and tropical fruit, showcasing global reach and wealth. The Ritz Paris particularly became the epitome of luxury dining, drawing royalty and celebrities alike. Just to give you an idea, a meal at an elite restaurant in New York City or Paris could easily cost $20 per person in the late 19th century, which equates to around $500 today. Being seen in the right restaurants could boost one's social standing. Who you dined with, what you ordered, and how you behaved mattered tremendously. This is also where capitalism comes in, my favorite thing in the world. By the way, I'm being sarcastic, but capitalism did come in. The restaurant as a competitive status symbol became even more formalized with the arrival of food criticism and guides. Michelin Guides, launched in 1900 by the Michelin Tire Company, it originally aimed to encourage driving by recommending inns and restaurants. By 1926, Michelin introduced its star rating system. If you got 1 star, you were a very good restaurant. 2 stars, excellent cooking, worth a detour. 3 stars, exceptional cuisine, worth a special journey. Gaining or losing a Michelin star could make or break a restaurant's reputation and business. Critics were also on the rise. Newspapers and magazines began publishing restaurant reviews by the late 19th century. Duncan Hines, yes, the man later associated with cake mixes, was one of the most famous food critics, and publications like the New York Times influenced public opinion on where to dine. The restaurant industry in this time also latched on to romance. Dining out played a critical role in transforming courtship and romance. In the Victorian era in the late 19th century, public interactions between unmarried men and women were highly restricted. Early on, women dining alone with a man in public could be considered scandalous, suggesting bad things. These norms changed in the late 19th century and early 20th century. As middle-class values shifted, restaurants began to offer respectable public spaces for couples. The emergence of cabarets, cafes, and restaurant dinners allowed dating couples to meet and interact outside chaperone parlors. By 1920, during the Roaring Twenties, it became socially acceptable, even fashionable, for young unmarried couples to dine together in public. Romantic dining rituals such as sharing a dessert or ordering champagne became common. Here, Valentine's Day promotions also began appearing at restaurants, linking restaurants and romance permanently. By the 1950s, a Gallup survey in the US showed that nearly 60% of young adults had their first date at a restaurant or diner. Even today, as we know, dinner dates remain one of the most common forms of early romantic outings. Not saying you should stop taking your wife or husband out to dinner if you're married, please continue doing that. Beyond romance and status, restaurants also became essential venues for commerce and networking. I'm talking about the business lunch. The business class needed neutral, semi-private spaces to conduct negotiations, discuss deals, and socialize with clients. Restaurants offered this privacy without the formality of boardrooms. Cities like Chicago, New York, and San Francisco saw the rise of power lunch spots located near financial districts. The Union League Club in Chicago and Delmonico's in New York became hubs where deals were forged over steaks and oysters. And as we know, by the mid-20th century, the business lunch became so embedded that major companies allocated expense accounts specifically for client dining, which is a standard practice today. In a 1956 Business Week survey, 72% of executives reported that they made important business decisions at restaurants. In the early 2000s, American businesses spent about $20 billion annually on dining and entertainment expenses. So we know on one side, restaurants are seen as this very bougie, classy thing where you can go and dine with your lover or a very prominent businessman. But on the other side, there's a new type of restaurant emerging: fast food. The birth of the fast food model can be traced back to White Castle. Founded in 1921 in Wichita, Kansas by Bill Ingram and Walter Anderson. It revolutionized food service by introducing standardized, mass-produced hamburgers sold at low prices, initially 5 cents per burger. They wanted to adopt a few key concepts to keep their costs low. First of all, uniform restaurant design. Clean, white, castle-like buildings, signaling hygiene and reliability. Secondly, open kitchen. Customers could see food being prepared, building trust during an era of widespread concern over meat quality. And thirdly, speed and efficiency. The layout and cooking methods were optimized for high turnover, allowing many customers to be served quickly. As we know, this concept was very popular in America. McDonald's began as a barbecue restaurant in 1940. By 1948, they had overhauled their business to focus exclusively on burgers, fries, and shakes, introducing the speedy service system. Ray Kroc, a milkshake machine salesman, joined in 1954 and franchised McDonald's aggressively, opening the first McDonald's Corporation restaurant in Des Plaines, Illinois in 1955. They took a lot from White Castle in terms of the business model, but also introduced franchising to facilitate rapid national and international expansion. And who can forget the branding and marketing genius of McDonald's? Ronald McDonald was introduced in 1963, and the golden arches are symbols that are recognized worldwide even today.
At the same time, now come on and meet the boys and girls.
Oh, we've already met. I know we're going to be friends, too, because I like to do everything boys and girls like to do. Especially when it comes to eating those delicious McDonald's hamburgers. A magic tray here keeps me well supplied. McDonald's hamburgers, french fries, and milkshakes. Watch for me on TV. We'll have lots of fun.
McDonald's is perhaps the biggest fast food success. By 1960, they had 228 locations, and by 2020, McDonald's operated over 39,000 locations in over 100 countries. They serve approximately 69 million customers daily. The fast food industry in general is huge, valued around $570 billion globally by 2021. Perhaps the perfect segue from fast foods is talking about drive-thrus. Suburbanization rose a lot after World War II. Car culture exploded, and drive-thru restaurants catered to this new lifestyle. People needed economic efficiency. They wanted to eat meals quickly. There were also workforce shifts. More women entering the workforce, less time for home-cooked meals, making fast food an attractive option. Companies like McDonald's pioneered the use of pre-cut, frozen fried, pre-portioned beef patties and centralized supply chains. Uniformity became the industry's mantra. And because of this, we saw a huge decline in family meals at home. In the early 20th century, about 80 to 90% of American meals were eaten at home. By the 1970s, roughly 20% of meals were consumed outside the home. Today, Americans spend over 50% of the food budget eating out, according to the USDA. Drive-thru sales actually now account for about 60 to 70% of fast food business in the United States alone. I want to iterate though, this is not specific to Western cuisine alone. As people move across the world through immigration, trade, colonization, and globalization, they carried their food traditions with them, creating a truly global restaurant culture. Mass immigration to the US from China brought rich culinary traditions as well. The first Chinese restaurants in America appeared during the California Gold Rush in the 1850s, catering initially to Chinese workers, then expanding to a wider clientele. By 1910, there were over 1,000 Chinese restaurants in the United States. Waves of Caribbean, Indian, Pakistani, and African immigrants brought their cuisines to the United Kingdom as well. Curry houses exploded in popularity. By 2001, there were over 8,500 Indian restaurants in the UK. Actually, today, chicken tikka masala is the national dish of the UK. Vietnamese first shops in Paris, Ethiopian restaurants in Washington, Washington, D.C., and sushi bars in Sao Paulo became part of everyday urban landscapes. In the 1980s, chefs like Wolfgang Puck popularized Asian-European fusion in California. Korean tacos in Los Angeles, popularized by Roy Choi's Kogi barbecue truck in 2008, are another example. Korean-style meats served in Mexican tortillas. In cities like London, New York, Toronto, and Sydney, it is now extremely common to find dozens of cuisines represented within a few city blocks. So restaurants became an integral part of every culture. So although restaurants have had a cultural dominance, as science has evolved, people have started to notice the health implications that come with them. A lot of restaurants, especially fast food restaurants, serve high calorie, high fat, high sodium, and high sugar items. Obesity in the US and other countries has risen by 13% in 1960 to over 42% in 2020. And on one hand, you also have the loss of traditional cooking skills. In 2013, a Harvard study found that fewer than 60% of American dinners involve any home cooking from scratch. Young adults in particular were less likely to know how to prepare basic meals without pre-packaged ingredients. To counter these health criticisms, in recent years we've seen the rise of fine casual. These restaurants aim to combine ingredients, techniques, and philosophies of fine dining with the speed, affordability, and informality of casual restaurants. One of the most popular examples is Chipotle, which I actually do love. It started in 1993 and became the model for premium fast casual by focusing on responsibly raised meats and customizable meals. Sweetgreen is also a good example. Founded in 2007, it emphasizes organic, local ingredients in a fast casual salad restaurant. And although Chipotle and Sweetgreen are more expensive than McDonald's, they're only marginally more expensive now with the rise in costs of traditional fast food restaurants. And even though fast casual is trying to address a lot of these cost concerns, restaurants may actually have peaked according to a lot of people. Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, Deliveroo. The online food delivery market is now valued over $150 billion, up from just $35 billion in 2017. Over 60% of adults report ordering delivery at least once a week. So before, if you were going out once a week to dine at a restaurant, you're saying, why make that 15-minute drive or that 25-minute train when I can just eat at home and get the same food? And heat it in my microwave. To counter this and appeal to specifically younger diners, restaurants are changing their focus, focusing even more on farm-to-table ingredients, sourcing directly from local farms and advertising that. Zero-waste restaurants are also a new trend. For example, Silo in London. They mill their own flour, compost all scraps, and reuse virtually everything. Literally everything. So they're trying things out, but the solution is unclear. How can we give people a good dining experience with good ingredients, but still make it affordable for them? Don't get me wrong, the high-end fancy restaurants are there and are always going to be there because rich people need an excuse to spend all of their money and show off. But this gap in the market for the average person who wants to go out with their family or with their friends, enjoy a nice meal but not have to pay a kidney and a leg for it, is still relatively open, and it remains to be seen how restaurants are going to address it. As always, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to smash the like button and subscribe. We explore a new food concept on this channel every week and find out how it links to culture, society, and business. Food is essential for us, and it's important that we understand it better. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.